What's up, everyone? Welcome to the April 21st edition of FanDuel Tournament Plays presented by Prize Picks. I'm your host, Adam Scherer. You can follow me on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. And as a reminder, you get one free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum when you sign up and make a deposit at Prize Picks. Be sure to use the code Awesemo to receive a 100% first deposit bonus up to $100. We're switching things up today, going back to the NBA. Weird baseball schedule, so not many games this evening. The main baseball slates were this afternoon. So we're going to take a look at the three-game NBA playoff slate like we were every night up until a couple weeks ago, looking at NBA, that is. So going back to that, looking at 5 of the top tournament options on FanDuel using the Boom Bust tool on Awesemo.com. Starting at number 5, Kyle Anderson, $3,900 price tag. He has small forward and power forward eligibility. Anderson started the second half in place of Steven Adams last game. Adams only played a total of 3 minutes after being benched for Brandon Clark right out of the gate. We haven't gotten a Memphis starting lineup yet. Based on how last game went, I assume you're getting Kyle Anderson in there again. They like him defensively. I think, believe he matches up better against the Minnesota front court, Karl-Anthony Towns in particular. Not that there's any one guy that's going to slow down Towns, but Memphis has not been using Jaren Jackson there typically, and most teams defend Karl-Anthony Towns with their 4. So if they're trying to avoid foul trouble or whatever the reason would be that you're not throwing Jackson out there, going to somebody like Kyle Anderson makes some sense. I do think so. Right now, we have him projected for 25% ownership with a 37% chance of being in the optimal lineup. I think that we are projecting him to get those additional minutes, but I'm not sure that's totally reflected in the ownership yet. So I do think if we get Anderson confirmed as the starter, that 25% ownership projection does come up, but it's likely that, this gap is wide enough between the optimal lineup percentage and the ownership projection that there's still plenty of room for that ownership to come up and Anderson still to be underowned. Based on his second half rotation last game, if he starts and if this game's competitive, I expect that you see 25 to 26 minutes from Anderson, who is not a bad point per minute guy. He's at 0.74 FanDuel points per minute in the postseason, but during the regular season was closer to 0.9 FanDuel points per minute. He's not a super high usage guy, but he can get some assists. He does rebound relatively well. And if he's playing at the 4, essentially, alongside Jackson, then there's certainly an opportunity for his rebounding to improve. And actually, he was at 1.03 FanDuel points per minute, so even better than I was thinking at 0.9 during the regular season. Number 4, Klay Thompson, $6,200 price tag, shooting guard only. He is projected for 34% ownership with a 39% chance of being in the optimal lineup. Stephen Curry is expected to play more minutes for Golden State tonight. They haven't said if he's going to start or if he's just going to play longer stints off the bench, but any extra minutes that Curry plays are likely to cut into Thompson's average production. But that being said, he still has a 26.1% usage rate, and he's averaged 32.5 minutes per game so far this postseason. If tonight's game is competitive and it's only a 2-point spread, it's likely that you get 36 plus minutes from Thompson at a cheap $6,200 price tag. Number 3, Spencer Dinwiddie, $7,000, point guard and shooting guard eligible. Luka Doncic is trending towards doubtful, according to the most recent report from Woj. So, assuming he doesn't play, we have Dinwiddie projected for about 39% ownership with a 41% chance of being in the optimal lineup. Dinwiddie has averaged 0.94 FanDuel points per minute through the first 2 games this postseason, but he's also averaged 38 minutes per game. So, even though he has an unappealing matchup against Utah, both in terms of Utah being good defensively and also in terms of pace, Dinwiddie's just likely to play so many minutes and be so involved offensively that he still looks like a strong option at this price range. Number 2, Desmond Bane, $5,400 price, shooting guard and small forward eligible. He's projected for 50% ownership, but with a 53% chance of being in the optimal lineup. Bane played 31.5 minutes last game, lost about 5 minutes to garbage time at the end. If tonight's game is competitive, it's likely that you're getting 34 to 35 minutes from Bane. He's been around the point per minute guy, maybe a little bit lower all season long. So far this postseason, he's only averaged 0.78 FanDuel points per minute. But as a result, you're seeing a decreased price tag on Bane. In the games that he's played with Morant, Jackson, and Brooks this year, he has about a 20.5% usage rate, but he's also an efficient shooter. So the relatively low usage isn't as much of a concern. He's very clearly underpriced at $5,400. And number 1, Nikola Jokic, $11,400 price tag, power forward and center eligibility. Not sure what FanDuel's doing, giving Jokic and I believe Embiid also power forward eligibility. They absolutely never play those positions, but it does make it a little bit easier to get him into lineups. And as a result, we have him projected for a 66% chance of being in the optimal lineup on FanDuel at only 56% projected ownership. I say only because that is much less than his chances of being in the optimal lineup. Jokic clearly projects as the top option in terms of projection. The only real question is, do you have enough value to get there? Because as we know, in the postseason, it can be difficult. Value can be difficult to come by. But assuming Memphis goes with their new lineup, that opens up some value. You'll have some value elsewhere, like Dallas with Doncic not expected to play. And Jokic does project so much better than everybody else on the slate that it's very likely that he's in the optimal lineup. One other thing to keep in mind with Jokic, clearly Denver has struggled in the postseason so far through the first two games. A lot has been said about Draymond Green's defense on Jokic. It's worth noting that Jokic has still averaged 1.69 FanDuel points per minute through these first two games. So don't read too much into the fact that Draymond is doing a good job on him defensively. And from a real life standpoint, Denver certainly has struggled. Jokic is still getting it done from a fantasy standpoint. So to recap, the top 5 tournament options on FanDuel: number 5, Kyle Anderson; number 4, Klay Thompson; number 3, Spencer Dinwiddie; number 2, Desmond Bane; and number 1, Nikola Jokic.